So the question is why did the raid actually happen? And ICE, who is Immigration Customs Enforcement, who are the people who enforce immigration outside of the border and inside the border and 100 miles north of the border to the Border Patrol does. They pretty much have a policy right now that's set by the administration, by Obama, saying we're only going to catch criminals who are undocumented. Undocumented people who have like warrants out for their arrest. But what that means is kind of up for debate, because what happened to the Mejias, which happens a lot, is that ICE came to their house at 6 in the morning with like tons of guns out, drawn, knocked on the door, and they're looking for someone who's like named Jose Mejia. How many Mejias are there in the world, right? There are a lot. So they said, where's Jose Mejia? And they're like, we don't know Jose Mejia. Yeah, my name's Mejia, but we don't know Jose Mejia. And they came to their house looking for the wrong person, essentially. But after they do that, they say, wait a minute, where are your papers? Where are your papers? Where are your papers? Where are your papers? So they go ostensibly looking for a criminal, and then they find non-criminals who happen to be undocumented. So they burst in their house with guns drawn and like, pointing their gun at like a 6-year-old, waking her up or she was 4 at that point, waking her up, and brought everyone in the living room and handcuffed Sam. So yeah, that's what happens somewhat often. And unfortunately, actually, in the past year, there have been like more people deported than there were even in like the Bush administration. So under Obama, basically Obama's deporting more people than George Bush did. And that's kind of for a bunch of different reasons, but it's not getting better as of right now. Yeah. Yeah, the question was what kind of criminal activity because of what kind of criminal activity does ICE go looking for people? That's a good question. I mean, there's no way to really know unless you're kind of on the inside looking at why they decide to go after which people and kind of what kind of high value people. I would assume that it would be for something like more major than stealing a shirt at Kmart, just because that probably happens a lot more than like much worse crimes. And I would hope that it's only for like dangerous people, because like undocumented or not, like none of us want dangerous people on the street, right? Like if you murder someone, like we want that person caught and we want to figure out what happened, and regardless of the justice system being really broken, which I think it is, we need to remedy that situation. But someone stealing a shirt at Kmart is obviously a very different thing. So there's really no way to tell, but there is definitely a way to tell that often ICE goes looking for people who have warrants out on their arrest, and they find other people who don't have warrants out for their arrest, who are undocumented, and then they end up kind of corralling those. So.
When their parents, when they were in Guatemala, how were they like paying for the house and all their stuff, or never?
Yeah, so the question is, when the parents were in Guatemala, how were they paying for like life in the United States, right? Because it's like they did opposite immigration, right? Usually normally the dad comes and works here and then sends money back to support the mom and the kids, right? That's like classic immigration model. But this way, the parents were sent back to Guatemala, where there are like no jobs and the economy is really bad right now. So they didn't really. They had some savings, and it cost a lot to get deported. They actually had to buy their own plane tickets. They had to like deport themselves, essentially. There is a plane that like goes back that is free, whatever. It's a horrible way to put it, but that you don't have to pay for. But their case got extended another like 48 hours, so they missed that plane, and then they had to buy their own tickets. But they basically just ate into their savings. And the community, they live in Novato, up by SRFL, and the community really came out and helped out and raised money. Their church raised money. Marina Organizing Committee, which is like conglomeration of businesses, came together and helped out. And friends and family, I mean, a lot of people really love them a lot from the broader community, Latino, not Latino, documented, not documented. So they were helped out to a point, but they basically just like went through all their money. And it was getting to like the breaking point where they couldn't really work and make money in Guatemala, and things are costing a lot of money here. They're about to lose their house here, and then that's kind of when their case came through and they got to come back. And really luckily, Sam got a construction job. While they were gone, the 99-year-old woman died, who Elita was working for, taking care of. And then the 2-year-old, they put him in nursery school, so she kind of came back and she still doesn't really have work. But kind of right when things were going to go really bad, they came back. So, yeah.
While they're here waiting for waiting to see what will happen, are they able to go outside? Are they able to work? Do they get a work permit to work?
Yeah. So the question is, do they have a work permit while they're here? And yeah, the answer is yes. They have a work permit now. That was like part of the deal in coming back. And then ironically, kind of once you get caught and you were undocumented, once you get caught and you're in the legal system, you kind of have more rights than you ever did before. Because when you're in the legal system, you can get like a temporary work permit and you can go get a real job, and you have like a, you know, social security number, and you can be, you're in the system and part of the system essentially, even though you're kind of like fighting to stay part of it.
I know that because I first of all, I had a green card, and then I became a citizen in 2003. I was married, my husband's dead. And after we got married, I had to wait for a certain time before I could get a green card. So they gave me a temporary work permit so that I could go out and start working.
Yeah. And she just talked about her own experience about getting a temporary work permit and then getting a green card. And are you a resident now or a citizen now? She's a citizen now. Yeah, so there's this whole process and all these different kind of varying levels of legal status, from like a temporary work permit to a full-time work permit to residency to green card and citizenship and a lot of things in between. So, yeah.
Can you talk to the students a little bit about what the DREAM Act is and how they can evolve to making it more a reality? Since, you know, Obama did talk about it during the State of the Union address in Mexico.
Yeah, definitely. Who knows what the DREAM Act is about? If someone does. Can you tell us what the DREAM Act is about?
Well, I'm not sure, but like it's they say if you came here, and then if you came here legally, and sorry, but you had to go to high school, or you had to be applying to a university to be able to get papers, but then that's the only thing. So I'm not gonna like, I mean, it helps the students get papers, the ones who are undocumented, but it didn't pass, so they couldn't. They're trying to get it back again, but it's not for sure.
Yeah, so all that's super right. So basically, it's a way for kids who came when they were young, like through no decision of their own, like the kids whose parents brought them when they were children to the U.S. illegally, to eventually have a path to citizenship. But with that, again, a lot of caveats, as there are with anything that has to do with the immigration system. So you have to come before you're 15, I believe. You have to go to high school, finish high school, and then you have to do 2 years in college. It can be a community college or state college, whatever college, and or 2 years in the military service. After that, if you're kosher like with the law, if you don't have a criminal record and pass a bunch of other kind of criteria, then you can get a conditional residency. And when it was going through Congress this last time, they kind of like changed it a bunch of times and made it so it was basically conditional residency for like 7 years, I think. And then you would be permanent residence after 7 years of, again, not committing any crimes and being a model citizen. and then you can go on to be a citizen from there. So basically it's creating, albeit a really long path to citizenship, like some kind of path to citizenship for youth, kids who come here undocumented with their parents. So, as you said, it went through the government and it lost. It needed 5 more votes, and that was when the Democrats had a majority in both houses before all the Republicans came in, who are decidedly anti-Dream Act and anti any rights for undocumented people, most of them. So now there's a big fight. Like, people are still pushing. It's like, we have to get the Dream Act back on the ballot, and we have to get Dream Act passed. This is like a little bit of immigration legislation. It's not like broad, comprehensive immigration reform, which is going to be really hard to do. But it's like a little piece that's just for the kids who didn't like decide on their own to come, but are in the U.S. in the situation that they didn't really ask for, but they're in the situation growing up here and going to school and wanting to be citizens and wanting to be legal. So ways that we can get involved, there are a lot of different organizations that are working for the DREAM Act. There's one called Dream Activists, which is run by dreamers, people who are undocumented, who are fighting to get the DREAM Act passed. There are a lot of local DREAM Act organizations, and before, when it was going through the government, there were a lot of mobilizations. So I don't know if anyone heard, but there were people who were undocumented, maybe like 19, 20 years old, who would dress up in a cap and gown, like graduation gown, and then go into like a senator's office and sit down and be like, I'm not moving until, you recognize me and let me be legal, basically as a protest, which takes some that's pretty crazy stuff. To go into John McCain's office in Arizona and say, yeah, I'm undocumented, I have a cap and gown on, and I'm not leaving this office. My friend did that, yeah. And so leading up to the vote, a lot of those things were going on. Now it's kind of died down a bit because it's not on the agenda anymore. But a couple weeks ago, Obama did say he wants to try to pass the DREAM Act in the coming year or so, which seems like it will be incredibly difficult. But there's still a lot of political sentiment to get things done and to get DREAM Act passed. So I definitely encourage anyone who's interested in these type of things to go online, check out dreamactivist.org, and just put in like DREAM Act San Francisco, and then a bunch of different things will come up and you can get involved, help out. May 1st is like a big immigrant rights march day every year, and there'll be a huge march and a lot of DREAM Act contingents there. So.